All right, we are live MythVision podcast. We're going to be dealing with the cult of Mithras. I'm interested in unraveling the mysteries of this cult, and today I have a special guest joining me again. This is the second time he'll be joining us, and that is the Backyard Professor. Welcome back to MythVision, my friend.
Thank you, Derek. Good to see you again. How you doing?
Doing good, doing really good. You've been writing extensively on this lately, doing a deep dive into the mysteries of Mithras. And of course, we're going to be discussing that. And before we get into that content, I want everybody to take the opportunity to consider going down into the description. The Backyard Professor, he's on the YouTube channel Mormon Discussion Inc. And if you go to playlist and you right here, you'll see playlist. You go to Backyard Professor on Mormonism. We're going to be doing series on this as well. Look at that young man right there. Sharp-looking guy. Anyway, he's constantly reading and learning, and so go have fun checking him out. Also on his website in particular, that's in the description. If you like what you hear, you can support him. You can donate. You can listen to the material and go from there. It is all in the description. So, Kerry, welcome.
Thank you. This is going to be fun. I hope it's inspiring, and I hope it's educational. So.
I do too. And just before we start, let me bring to your attention our intro.
Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.
We are MythVision. Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. Kerry, tell us, there seems to be this interesting cult that we have kind of lost completely to history. And it's called Mithras.
Somewhat. That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah. I think what we're going to hold on. Let me change right now the comments on this chat. There we go. There's everybody. I didn't do that last time. Electronic genius.
Don't take away your enthusiasm this time. You were excellent. Melody Joy says this guy's great, very enthusiastic.
Oh well, thank you. That's very kind. That is so kind of you.
Yeah, see,
no, that's overdoing it.
Let me turn that down a little bit. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, I
like that on the phone with me when we talk. He's hyped like this as well. So please, this is just who he is.
We have this. When the scholarship, actually, in any of the ancient mysteries, when the scholarship describes it as a cult, it's not a pejorative. What the word cult in the scholarship means is what they're doing. It's the practice. It's their ritual, their actions, etc. They say the cult of the pharaohs in the Egyptian mysteries of Isis, him circumambulating around the pyramid. It's not a negative as opposed to a religion. All of the mysteries were basically religious. But this cult of Mithras is really interesting. Let me, by way of introduction, that will kind of bring us right into this.
Let me know when you want me to pull up one of these images too, because that might give people some imagination.
Well, yeah, okay, I'll let you know. Yeah, we've got some great images, you guys. This will be fun. I'm looking forward to this a lot.
What did you want to pop one up and give them an idea of what we're entering into the world together, or what do you want to do?
Yeah. Well, let me introduce some scholars that I say introduce. Let me back you up with so many of the fantastic discussions you've been having with scholars just happen to be the scholars I've been reading. And I want to share the Dale Allison as an example, the intertextual Jesus. I noticed I've enjoyed your materials with James Tabor, and I've got a few of his books. This one you can't see. This is the Jesus Dynasty. He's somewhat controversial. All of the scholarship, the really interesting thing is all of the scholars today, simply because we live in such a fabulous age, because there is so much new light being discovered that really makes it interesting. And we're learning more now about the ancients than we ever expected to. And of course, Bart Ehrman. Come on, you gotta love Bart Ehrman. Those are his two best for popularizer. And so I've been reading him, and I've read all of his other books. I've noticed Mark Smith. I really enjoyed your discussion with Mark Smith. I've got several of his books. This is by far one of his greatest. This one is the untold stories about the Ugaritic texts in relation to the Old Testament. And then this one is the Lulu. The evangelicals do not like this. Archaeology and history has shown them we don't give a flying pea, pick and flip what you like or don't like. We need to go with the evidence. The base theory, bring in all the evidence. Correct? Yes,
absolutely. I think everybody could give us an amen in the chat on that one. Let's get an amen.
Up.
Let's get an amen in the chat on that one.
Hit me with an amen, baby. And then, of course, Robert Price, the pre-Nicene New Testament. The thing is gigantic. It's like 700 pages. He gives us 54 formative texts that aren't in the canon, but were in that era. Very important, very intriguing stuff. And then Elaine Pagels, and I've got all her books, but this Gnostic Sweetheart is sensational. This particular book of mine of hers is my favorite, Beyond Belief, where she compares the Thomas with the Gospel of John and the philosophical tension within Christianity from the very beginning. She's excellent on that score. And then I just watched this morning, M. David Litwa.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Deus. Look, this is one of the greatest books you'll ever read. I know you said you started reading it that morning before your interview, and you got like 158 pages in. Yeah, that's a book you can't put down.
Yeah,
I've read it.
He goes through methodology, then he gets into it makes you want to look at evidence differently than what you typically are used to doing it. Because you have some scholars who take a historiography type of traditional, there's oral tradition and this and that. He's more of the textual and dealing with the cultural background to give you the data. And it's more like, look at Plutarch. Look at a contemporary of Luke. Look at Plutarch and what he says about, Isis, Osiris, the gods, mating with humans. And it's not a sexual union sometimes. Sometimes it's something else. There's all sorts of stuff to consider. And dealing with synchronic and diachronic, I've been using that term lately and what that means. And just a lot of good stuff. But
well, the nice thing about him too is he is not sharing the information to be angry or he's not trying to refute anything. And he's in the process of bringing in the other Mediterranean traditions of deity. He shows that it's not necessary to try to theologically make Jesus unique.
Right.
And,
so without him trying to, he is in effect doing it, though.
He is correct. He's showing there is a greater cultural diversity. And that just about leads me into the Mithras. One more scholar I cannot forget, one of my very favorites, is Dennis R. MacDonald. And this is his Gospels and Homer. I was just talking to him the other day on the phone about his materials. And he's got like a dozen books. He's very good. What these scholars have in common is we are to the point to where we are discovering that there are more to early Christianity. There's more to Hellenism, that is, from Alexander the Great up to Jesus's day and beyond. But the Hellenistic era is about that. I've seen scholars say that's a 180-year period up to the Maccabean times, and then it goes into other stuff. But that era was a huge era, and I mean, it was a huge brawl. It was a gigantic mixing bowl, because Alexander the Great had it all unified, and then when he died, the world broke up in 3 different sections, and of course all of the little guys were warring with each other, trying to reacquire their lands and establish their politics, and establish their religion and their own history. And it was a great big rewrite. This was the era of the pseudepigrapha and basically the Apocrypha. The books of Enoch were huge in this era. Daniel was written in this era. 200, I'm going to say roughly 200 BC.
And that's stretching it.
And that's stretching it, correct. And yet his idea, he wants you to look back to 500 and 600 BC, but that's not when he was written, right?
Right. And another interesting note is just to point out, when you say some people want to try and say Hellenism ended, which Litwood totally explains that in quotes scholars to show no, it continued. The common tongue was still Greek. Even when Latin was spoken by Romans, when Romans took over, it was still the Greek that was the common typical language.
And it had changed from the Attic to the Koine Greek also.
Right.
And that is what all of the early Christian fathers are written in, as well as the New Testament. Right. So yeah, that's interesting that he says, I'll back up and say, okay, yeah, it probably didn't end. It just kept going and extending,
or at least its influence, right? Its influence at least is adopted by Rome, so it's not like completely shut off. Even though their civic laws and stuff are a little different than what we find in the Greco-Roman world, which is why they were more influential. It wasn't about ethnicity. Like if you look at the, we're getting off track. So anyway, there's a lot of they were breaking down ethnicity walls and allowing
we're never off track on this subject. This is the mysteries, man.
It's just a lot of cool stuff to factor in. But yeah, this is leading up to what we're going to talk about with Mithras.
It truly is. And actually, I just this last week read Suetonius, the 12 Caesars, and from his point of view, it was real interesting how he described the various omens of their birth, the emperor's birth, as well as the omens that begin showing up when they were getting ready to die and they didn't know it, but the omens were there, kind of like the Ides of March for Julius Caesar. Right. Beware the Ides of March. Well, the only emperor, apparently, according to Suetonius, that did not participate in the Eleusinian mysteries was the heinous Nero. Because he had murdered his mother, and the mysteries say right there up front to the crowd when they're showing up, anyone is welcome. You don't have to be a particular group, but you can't have committed murder, and you have to speak Greek. Well, Nero had one of 2, so far as I'm aware, he was the only emperor. This Mithraic mystery is somewhat of a parallel, different, yet there are a lot of similarities. Now, Dr. Trevor Luke began talking to me on the phone. He's down in Florida State, and we've become good friends. And he's an expert on the Romans, and he's been sharing with me this theme, and it is in Suetonius. I found it in Suetonius, the 12 Caesars. It's also in Pliny. And this theme that there was in the Judean area was Suetonius calls it a superstition. The Jews called it a prophecy of a world leader that was going to arise. And the Jews, of course, were trying to apply that prophecy to Jesus. And very remarkably, the Romans was also, it was apparently running all over the the Roman Empire in just that era. Suetonius himself mentioned it, and they applied it to the Roman emperors. Which emperor? Which one of you guys are going to be the new world savior, the leader? And that is why Vespasian, with his son Titus, jumped into Judea and put down the Jewish insurrection. He saved Rome. That particular prophecy was applied to Rome and fulfilled. The Jews didn't get their fulfillment. The Romans did. Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah.
That's interesting when you read two sides of the equation, because we're all used to the New Testament picture, How Mithraism ties into this. With the Orthodox, I'll call it Orthodox, with the Orthodox archaeology now and the history, Mithraism proper, I'm going to say the cutoff, the beginning point, which is the cutoff point, is post Jesus's life. The earliest archaeological discovered and dated. Can you put up that one real cool artistic representation of the Mithraeum?
The colored one, or
yeah,
the Mithraeum?
One. That one's a great one.
Which one is it? The art or the realistic actual?
The art, the one with the stars on the ceiling.
Okay. Ceiling stars. Let's do this.
It's the art. Yeah, that one. The artistic depiction. Now this is an artist depiction of the Mithraeum, but the idea here. None of these date to before 100 AD. Now, the really remarkable thing about this, okay, take it down. You're hiding my lovely face. Boy, I'll bet you've never had an interviewer say that. The reason that's important is because Mithraism, for a number of reasons, perhaps the most prominent one is it is a Roman mystery. And it really did attract the Roman soldiers. Now, in those Mithraeum, and we'll show other pictures for you guys too, for the audience. Those Mithraeum were anywhere from 20 foot to 60, 70 foot long.
Want me to show the long one?
Yeah, why don't you? You don't want to look at my ugly mug anyway, right? Yeah, so see, they had two benches on either side, and then there was a hollow area in the middle there. And on the one end, like you can see, is this what they call the Taractini Scene. And I'll talk about that. Excellent. Yeah, there's a good one there. And usually they were carved. There were some that were painted on the end of the wall anciently. Most of them were carved in stone. And this shows the main icon of Mithraism is Mithras kneeling on top of the bull. The bull is crunched down. He's grabbing the bull by the snout, pulling his head up, and he's plunging the dagger into the shoulder of the bull. He's sacrificing the bull.
I might as well show it a little better here.
There's an excellent close-up right there. This is basically the main Taractini. And I'm just seeing Shiny Gee talk about Brian Marescu's recent book, The Immortality Key, is incredible. And I was going to bring that up. Thank you. You have a great audience. You guys are well informed. That's excellent comment. Yeah, we'll get to Brian. Brian's book is what got me onto all of this. Between him and Dr. Luke, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Yeah, the Immortality Key talks about this a lot. It was mostly for men, and those who were attracted to it the most were the Roman soldiers. Now, Mithras is equated with Perseus. Often. He's always shown wearing that Phrygian cap. And
let me see if we can get
that red cap on top of his head. And you can see the two guys with their cross legs on either side. The one has the firebrand down, the other one has the firebrand up, and they also are wearing that Phrygian cap. And notice the colors here, really important. The red outfit. His cape doesn't look blue, but you can see on those other guys on either side, they're kind of baby blue. It's supposed to be the same color, more or less. Mm-hmm. And then up in the corner, you see Sol, the sun, and on the other side, the crescent moon, the moon. And then on either side of this, you have different scenes from the initiation. This is what the scholarship has basically come to understand the initiates' cult activities within this Mithraea to acquire hierarchical power within the cult. So yeah,
makes me kind of want to show that they're doing a process right here, actually.
Yeah, that's excellent too. And this, of course, is an artistic rendition, but we know something. Notice that gentleman that's standing. He's got the one closest to that Taractini facing us. He's holding that sword up, and in his other hand, in his left hand, right hand, he's got that wreath, and he's going to crown that person on his knee, and he's laid his sword down, and then you can see the group on either side. That's actually a really cool looking artistic rendition. I love that. And then you can see stars on the ceiling too.
That's good. I didn't notice it on this one.
I didn't either when we were looking through these. So that is awesome.
But also the initiate looks like he's not wearing any clothes as well. This seems to be.
They do say that they did work naked because there is a clothing aspect to the different grades of initiation. So that very well could be, yes. Yeah. Essentially, I mean, I've read some articles online where they had a hazing. I mean, the Roman soldiers. Come on, these are the machos. How tough are you? How much can you take, punk? You're gonna be here. You're gonna be a man, or we gonna kick your butt. Yeah, stuff like that.
Right.
Macho stuff, and yet religious. So this theme, they had 7 different levels in their initiation. Unfortunately, women were not allowed in this particular mystery, although I am seeing rumbles where new scholarship is showing that's not as accurate as it used to be just 15 years ago either. So
wow,
we'll keep our eyes peeled. There could be some new information coming out, which really, truly,
as long as it's factual, this is one thing I want to say. And then I do want to get these super chats. So if anyone super chats, we'll keep you in mind. You could steer us if you have questions, things like that. But the first thing I do want to mention about this in scholarship, and I've talked to quite a bit of scholars on trying to pin Paul down, right? Just It's a different topic, but the point is Paul within Judaism, Paul against Judaism. And some of these scholars say, listen, with what happened to Jews in the Holocaust, you got to imagine that because of our current circumstances of what we're politically dealing with and what's real in the world we live in, you got to imagine people are trying to make Paul as Jewish and as faithful and as, right there in the vein of Judaism as possible, that what we call Judaism, so that we can have Christians or people who are affiliates of Christianity not see Jews in a negative light. Because look, your patrons are Jewish, right? They're practicing Judaism. They're pro-Judaism. They're not. But in reality, some of these scholars think that the modern issues we're dealing with are impacting how we're trying to interpret this stuff. So I say that to say, I wonder if modern feminism is playing. I'm not sure. I'm an ignoramus on this particular topic. But my point is, unless they have actual evidence that really just clearly says this, is it really a political move, or is this really scholarship pointing out that women attributed themselves to this type of thing? So I'm cautious until I have better data. That's just how
fundamentally so, brother. You are thinking correctly. Yeah.
Right.
No,
right.
This is good. This is good because what we are assuming that we understood about Mithraism. Now, the big scholarly study, late 1800s into the early 1900s, was, of course, Cumont. And his approach has now been, I'm going to be gentle here, and I'm going to say, it's been completely wiped out. No, it has been superseded. New new analysis, new scholarship. As the archaeological record keeps going, right? We keep acquiring more material knowledge that artifacts. I mean, William Dever, in his brand new book, Beyond the Texts in Biblical Archaeology, has demonstrated that artifacts really do speak to us. They can tell us a wealth of information, and they will change our perception. Written texts are good too, but artifacts in conjunction. This is what's happening with Mithraism. The incredible thing about this is we don't have a literature of Mithraism. And now I'm not contradicting myself, I promise. I know that. What about the Mithras Liturgy? I've got a copy of it right here, and it's pages and pages. So wait a minute, cowboy. But let me. We don't. Not like the New Testament, not like the Old Testament, not like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Gnostic materials. We essentially have been stuck with interpreting the art, the iconography. And true, we do have some short inscriptions. We do have graffito around the different monuments and all. That's true. But essentially, there is no literary remains. We still don't have a written description of what helped you elevate from one initiation step to another. We know they had 7 different grades according to someone else's description who knew the Mithraists anciently, and that was the Church Fathers. Now it is it is the Mithraic sacred meal, right? Here's where it gets tricky, because religion back then became very, very adamant. The early church fathers, not only do we now see their distortions of the Gnostics, because we have the Gnostics, but we suspect there is a distortion of their description of Mithraism too, because in the sacred meal, the sacrament, I will say, the communion, there was wine and bread consumed in a common meal in the Mithraic cult as well as early Christianity.
So
Last Supper. The early church fathers say, oh, well, obviously the devil imitated the Lord.
Right. So I want to show that video. Let me show that picture too, to show the meal. Sure. Let me get these super chats out of the way here. Topic discussed. Sure. Thank you so much for the super chat. Backyard Professor meets my friend D. And he knows of you as well, and he obviously loves what you do. Oh, no, that's not the one. It's this one in particular. I just want to show everybody real quick and continue with the super chats here. You see on the left bottom side where there's bread there, and they're serving what looks to be a little vase that's going to have your wine. So they're definitely having meals in this particular reenactment of a painting, if you could call it that, just to kind of show people. And then Nidimus, hope I'm saying that right. Thank you so much for the super chat. Altar call, all praise, MythVision. Thank you. Appreciate it. Your sins are forgiven, my friend. Do not worry.
Bravissimo.
Mr. Keeps on Ticking says the Mithraic mysteries. Wow. Good job, Derek. Also, thank the good doctor for this amazing presentation. Oh, well, thank you so much.
Well, I'm not a doctor. Thank you. But I am a backyard professor.
There you go.
I don't know how many are familiar with that. I take my books everywhere with me, including camping. So my wife started calling me. She said, "You're like a backyard professor. You bring your books, and while you're fishing with one hand, you're reading with the other."
Oh, man.
So that's where that stuck. So I don't have a doctorate, but thank you. That's very kind of you. I do have a bachelor's in history, but that goes way back.
But see, you go wide. You're not a specialist necessarily, but you read wide, and so it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Mr. Keeps on Ticking. Keep ticking, my friend, and thank you for the support. Always love it. If you have any questions, feel free to super chat them, and we'll periodically try to keep track on that. And let's keep going. So the problem is they may have distorted, just like they did with the Gnostics. I call them Gnostics. Either way, the same thing.
I've heard it
They're-
both ways.
It's not
Yeah.
one category or group either. They're just not
No, it's
the
not.
kind
That's
that they
correct.
are. Do you think they're doing that because they're trying to divorce this this common religious practice? They're trying to say, paint them in negative light? Because what do you do when people are close to you, but they're typically the people closest to you are your biggest enemies because they look like you? And I wonder if that's why they're distorting them.
And I can't argue against that. I would suspect that has a kernel of truth for sure. The other aspect of this is, again, I believe by the 2nd century, I know some of the early fathers began in the 180s, and then they moved all the way through. They lived for several hundred years in the early parts of this was before Constantine legalized Christianity, though, right? But the apologists were beginning to show up, and I believe it was here that they began to stress the uniqueness of Jesus. Now, I think part of that psychology would be based upon the fact that while there was no orthodoxy yet, Bart Ehrman, our man, he's very good on this. He really is. So is Jill Allison Jr., though. They're all good on it. Well, so is Elaine Pagels. Oh, my goodness. But the countryside, all of the millions of people out there, the Pagani, they call them Pagani, the country dwellers, the folk, paganism. They began to label them, right? I mean, if you can label something, then you know all about it, and you can instantly say, paganism, bad, Christianity, good. And it gives you this false impression that you understand it all, right? They couldn't get rid of these ancient mysteries. They couldn't get rid of, now understand too, and I do believe Litwa demonstrates this really well, as does definitely Dennis R. MacDonald in his magnificent research in the Greek epics. Virgil influencing Luke, Euripides with John, Homer with Mark. This influence could not just be eliminated. So in the long run, Christianity began to adapt a lot of these. Now, here's where we begin to get into, I'm going to skip and jump. I don't mean to. I want to do a good presentation here, but that just instantly brings to mind. Now, here's one of the rumors. Here's one of the myths that has been built up, and we're now recognizing that it's really, truly not accurate. This theme that Mithras was born December 25th. Jesus was born December 25th. We call that Christmas. Well, that is myth making in the modern sense. We do understand there are legends that say both Mithras and Jesus were actually born in a cave. This echoes the theme of the ancient Greeks. Zeus was born in a cave. Believe it or not, the Hebrews acquire the theme for their fatherly founder. Abraham was born in the cave. He was suckled on milk and honey, just like Zeus. So this legendary accretion of ideas begins to coalesce around Jesus because they can't just wipe everybody out. They don't have the state sponsorship yet. That comes later, which is so unfortunate. I mean, I hate to smear Christianity, but the history is brutal in some respects. So the idea here is Jesus's December 25th birthday wasn't until way later. It was one of the popes in 360, 365, something like that, that actually said, we've been here for 300 years, people, and We don't even know when our God was born. That's kind of embarrassing, isn't it? And everybody else out there is really having a ball with this Sol Invictus celebration at the winter solstice. Why don't we just call Sol Invictus Jesus Christ and go with that? We'll just turn it to our religious celebration, right? Well, none of that's accurate historically, okay? But for the acquisition of the mythology, with the mythology, that works pretty good. But understand, it's not true, right?
Right.
Theologically or historically, as far as that goes. So this other theme that has come up that is so remarkably interesting. And yes, there's probably some Christians who are so disappointed with this that they aren't going to accept it and flow with it. And they're still producing written materials today trying to show that it is valid after, people who are arguing against Christianity, they're still trying to find this as a wedge to knock down Jesus a notch or two. Look, you gotta, Bayes' theorem says you have to acquire all of the information, right? You have to get the accurate probability. Mithras did not have 12 disciples. So that parallel with Jesus and his 12 followers, it just doesn't quite work. Now, it is true that Mithras did have an association with the zodiac, the 12 constellations. That is true. But you can't technically call those constellations disciples, people, like you can with Jesus, right? So the parallel is iffy. That's all I'm pointing out.
I know people who try to they will make the biblical gospel narratives into astrotheology because they want the 12 disciples to be the 12 zodiac symbols, and that Jesus is the sun, the S-O-N, or no, S-U-N, I'm sorry,
S-U-N.
that travels through the 12 zodiac signs. So they do try to do that. Right. Yep.
David Feidler. This really is one of the better books. I'm going to do some videos on this guy because he is excellent. He also produced, I don't have a copy of it with me right off. He also produced a 5-volume scholarly / esoteric MythVision type journal called Alexandria. And he had hundreds of scholars from all the traditions, just like you're doing on your YouTube interviews so magnificently with all these scholars. He did it in print. I don't know why it only lasted 5 years. It is one of the coolest sets of journals I own, however. Cost me $100 for all 5. It was well worth $20 a piece. You might want to buy those before they go out of print. I do believe Feidler's still alive. But yeah, this deals with the early Christian symbolism and the cosmology. Now, there was a cosmological element. We do know now the Dead Sea Scrolls scholar, James H. Charlesworth. There's been several Jewish scholars in collaboration with the Christian scholars, especially since the archaeological discovery, again, new information acquired through archaeology, of the Dura Europos synagogue. We do know that there was overlapping materials with the Jews, with the Christians, with the pagans. Look, in Jesus's day, you had a heck of a mix. It was eclectic. You had the mysteries of Isis, and I mean, she was the big ancient mother goddess, and she was all over the Roman Empire. No kidding. You also have the great Phrygian mother Cybele and her son Attis, and the mysteries of Attis, for all intents and purposes, you're reading about Jesus with Attis. Here's the key with grasping
I want to show this too, just so everybody knows. This is the floor of a Jewish.
Oh, excellent! Thank
synagogue.
you.
So,
that is beautiful.
So you
Good
do
work.
have the
There's
mystery
now,
/ astrology.
See this center figure right there. Let's take a quick look real quick, you guys. This is cool. See those? Well, you can see his sun crown. That's his sun crown. That is a representation of the sun's rays. This is Sol Invictus. Notice the moon over his shoulder with the stars. Yeah, this is Sol Invictus. And then the four figures, 2 to his left, 2 to his right. This is the very famous four elements all throughout antiquity, all throughout all of the ancient mysteries.
The four winds, the four elements, the four cardinal.
Yes,
signs.
and notice how up in each corner you have one of the evangelists. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I mean, that would be one way to read it.
I think this is a Jewish synagogue here, by the way. You look at the
this
Hebrew.
This is
right.
Dura Europos. Yeah, this is Dura Europos. And then you have obviously the constellations circling the Sol Invictus. Now, see, this can be, you can see how this could have been interpreted with the sun has the 12 disciples, Sol Invictus. Mithras has the 12 disciples. Jesus has the 12 disciples. This is a representation, symbolism of the 12 tribes of Israel,
right?
The 12 nomes in ancient Egypt. The number 12, it's one of those. It
permeates everything.
John Michel has an entire book on the 12 tribes anciently. The 12 tribe nations. It goes up into the Celts in the north. It's south in Egypt. So this number symbolism is also quite prominent in the Mithras cult. And some numbers are emphasized more than others, of course. I mean, not every number can be sacred unless you're a Pythagorean. And don't kid yourself, the numbers from 1 to 10 in that tetractys of Pythagoras, that's still valid. That shows our still current musical scale. Mm-hmm. That never went out of date, man. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
We're talking thousands of years. And there are so many people who just poo-poo Pythagoras. Yeah, he was primitive. He was out of date. Nah, I don't buy that. Not at all. Yes, his mysticism was a little interesting, but that's the point of all these mysteries. Now, the reason I'm going to write my book, I've got the preface done. Here's what happened. I get looking into this Mithras, this Mithras liturgy, and I want to show you this real quick. Sorry to interrupt my trend of thought, but the Mithras liturgy is in the Greek magical papyri in translation. This is by Betts. Now, the nice thing is this also includes the demotic spells. So they've been fleshing this out. Now, there used to be hundreds of books. What these are, this magic papyri is in everyday situations between a husband and a wife, or a man who wanted a woman to be attracted to him, or this guy wanted to purchase that plot of land. They would use magic. We'll call it magic. They had rituals wherein they cast spells. They had the magic different names. It's a syncretism, which means they brought in this thing of the Romans. They brought that part of the Greeks. Oh, hey, that's cool in the Egyptian. With Isis, we'll grab that. Oh, hey, look, here's some Phrygian materials, and they wadded it all up like a loaf of bread.
And it's possible, I'm throwing this out there, that it's possible, we just don't have we wish we had better evidence, that they did that with Christians, or they did that with Jews, or something like that as well.
Fundamentally so.
Right.
Here's the sad story. There were hundreds of these. The papyri date from 200 BC approximately all the way up to 400 AD. So you have a 500-year frame. Now these particular fragments we found in Alexandria, Egypt. They were down south, but they were destroyed by the hundreds. I mean, even some of the Roman emperors was burning the books. And so we're very fortunate we have a few hundred scraps, fragments. The nice thing is this Mithras Liturgy. Now, the Mithras Liturgy in the papyri, that's a modern description of this ancient fragment. The ancients didn't call it their liturgy. It's just that it's the most complete idea. It's like 3 or 4 pages, and then they have an extra page after it describing how to prepare so that you can acquire your own spiritual, religious, visionary experience. This was the whole idea. They were asking the gods for help because they couldn't seem to convince this hot babe down on the corner that their buck teeth were not as ugly as the girl thinks, and he wants her to marry him. So he does a magic mumbo jumbo thing, right? I'm kind of being mocking somewhat, but no, they do it for their crops. They do it for the weather. It's real interesting how beholden they are to that. Well, this Mithras Liturgy, I'm going to say codifies it, but don't. That's actually it. Codifies the wrong word. There wasn't any set form to each Mithra. It wasn't a quote true religion. You know, it's just like
each ceremonial meeting room, if you will, might have a different.
Thank you. That's what I was wanting to say. Yeah, just so, like the art that you've been showing.
Or like churches today, you go down to your local Baptist, you can't wear short skirts. You go down here, you can wear long shirts, but you need a head covering. You go down here, there's different things for each denomination of Mithraism, it seems.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that was well put. And yet, there is parallels to other traditions that I've been discovering. Now, how I'm going to produce my book, and really I'll probably take it in the teeth from the scholars. See, my advantage is I don't belong to a specific university. My disadvantage is I don't belong to a specific university. It's kind of hectic that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can see I've went ahead and purchased all the gosh damn books I can and keep up with them. So I'm using the Mithras Liturgy as a dive-in point to study the mysteries, all of them, because man, they are so fascinating. They are just exquisite how these people put themselves into life, the earth. They recognized Mama Earth. Don't kid yourself. Gaia. Now, the concept Gaia goes way back. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. That's a good one. I'm going to do whole videos on that. That's fun stuff. But, I mean, you know, from dust thou art, to dust you're going to return. Look, mock Genesis all you want. It got that one right. Yeah, we are from the earth. Well, they wanted to, look, at nighttime, what was their entertainment? MythVision on YouTube? I'll bet they wish it was.
The stars.
The stars. The night sky. You guys, I read a story, no kidding, this just appalled me. Sorry for the diversion, but this is important. Man, the last earthquake that happened in LA, that was a big one, a bad one, and unfortunately it killed so many people, and it just caused chaos and mayhem. They still haven't rebuilt everything yet, and it was 20 years ago. But after about 2 weeks, the town officials began getting letters and phone calls from people in LA who were saying, hey, there is something really weird up in the sky. There's something, it doesn't belong there. There's something there. You better check that out. And it ended up being the Milky Way. They had never seen the stars. They had no idea what the Milky Way was. I mean, wow. So, yeah, we're smarter than the primitive ancients in some respects, but their entertainment was the stars.
Right.
Now, there is a new information. There's a new book right here. I'm going to tout this guy because it's fantastic. Homer the Theologian, Robert Lamberton. This is the Neoplatonic allegorical reading and the growth of the epic tradition.
This super chat's right in the vein of that, in fact. Thank you, Lauren Jones, for the super chat. Do you know if the Mithras Liturgy is earlier than Neoplatonic theurgical practice?
Theurgical practice.
Possibly
They seem
related.
possibly related. You know what? I'm going to look into that because now the liturgy itself, understand, again, we're at a huge disadvantage here because we only have this one piece. We don't even know if it actually originated down in Egypt, right? The majority of the papyri we have now we're getting from Egypt, but the Mithraea, man, they spread all the way north to Scotland. They were absolutely completely surrounded. They went off into Spain in the west. To the east, they went all the way to the eastern edge of the Black Sea. We're talking thousands of miles of spread and hundreds of these grottos, these caves. So
just to give them another taste,
the Neoplatonic theurgical practice could be involved. Here's the downside of Mithraism. We don't have a literature to actually describe their rituals.
Do you think
that
this is a guess, do you think that we will? Or do you think they wrote them down? Because the problem, there's a double-edged sword here. The number one sword is this: the time, the distance, the issues with, papyri going out, if they're not copying these things, etc. But the other side of that same sword is we're dealing with mysteries that are probably forbidden to write down. You see, so now you have...
Anciently, they said keep it secret or off with your head, and they were not kidding.
So that's the problem.
They kept the secret.
We're in a bad spot, you know what I mean? To try and but then again, hopefully someone did. I don't know. I think
that is a great question. I'm going to look into that, and Derek and I are going to keep in touch, and we'll do more podcasts together.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of keep you updated on that. That is a great question. Now, see, Iamblichus the Mysteries. He was huge on theurgy, and he was right in here in this period, right? The first century AD. So theurgic practice could very well have been what this book focused on is the philosophical justification that the Neoplatonists defended Homer against Plato and Socrates' negative assessment of the way Homer presented the gods' actions.
Right.
They did not like that. They wanted the gods to be good.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when you read the Odyssey and the Iliad, hey, the god gets mad. He's Apollo, the far strider, blam, he's shooting you with those arrows. That's the opening of the Iliad right there. He's wiping out the whole damn army because they offended his priests. Not everyone kept telling him, man, hey, would you just give the girl back? Don't take the girl, you idiot. Who gets the blonde is how Joseph Campbell put that. So this is a philosophical discussion. They didn't Plotinus and the later Neoplatonics, this is where they allegorized Homer, and they put his story into an allegory, in a general metaphor for human life itself, in order to defend Homer. Otherwise, he would have been book burned too.
Mm-hmm.
We might not have ended up with Homer, which would have been a tragedy. Now, here's the thing that should boil your blood is, did we lose a Greek Homer through the papyri? Because thousands of these rolls were destroyed. What did we lose? That kind of thinking, it just, okay, you don't agree with it. Do you have to destroy it, though? Apparently they did back then. Nowadays, we don't have to.
Or completely neglect copying it, which in effect destroyed a lot of the stuff as well.
Ehrman is big on that. You probably got that from Ehrman, didn't you?
Well, there's multiple scholars that would say that they're not copying it, but yeah, I think both would have taken place. Burning, purposeful destruction.
Fundamentally so.
That's why they hid them, these papyri, if you will, in Egypt, and we found them. Thankfully, we found these Gnostic ones, giving us a glance back into early Christianity. There's so much stuff here. You point this out. I think Plutarch does the same thing in defending Homer, and he's doing an apologetic, trying to deal with these problems. But even Litwa said there are some spots that were so dark and so bad in Homer that even he was like, okay, I don't think it's possible to allegorize that one. That would just is too bad. But he admits, like, he tries to do it so often, but there's some really bad spots. And there's stuff like, we're not being grammatically or politically correct here when I say some of this stuff. This is stuff that's found in Homer, but it gives more vivid what you would see in a really dramatic show. Is the New Testament typically has a nice way of dealing with things. And Dennis writes this in his book, Mythologizing Jesus. But then you have this moment in Homer when Odysseus comes back as the beggar, and the woman who had him as her, the midwife who had him as a suckle, she birthed him, Eurycleia.
Recognizes his scar.
And is like, I got to tell Penelope. I got to tell her it's you. And the text, it might matter which text we're talking about, grabs her by the throat. Literally, and he says,
"You're not telling anyone,
woman. You do that.
We've been gone 10 years, man."
Yeah,
and he's saying, "You are not telling anyone."
Right. And like you would imagine, that's whoa, don't do that. What are you doing? But the New Testament doesn't do that. And so at the end of the book, Mythologizing Jesus by Dennis, I had a tear. Literally, I had a tear because I loved what he did with his grandson. And he said, "Now that I've read these stories to you, which one do you like better, the Jesus one or the one of Odysseus, the Odyssey?"
Yeah.
And he said, Well, he said, "I like the Odyssey better." He said, "But
yes, he did.
Jesus is a better example that we, like it was like
that's what, he does the same thing in his Euripidean gospel.
Yeah,
when he compares Euripides with John, the theme is through the mimesis is to elevate Jesus above. And again, see, they could not destroy the Bacchae, the Dionysus mysteries that definitely influenced Eleusis, and the Kabiroi were even earlier, and those had come down. Well, they couldn't just destroy those. So John, especially considering the Gospel of John is said to be written in Ephesus, man, at that era, Ephesus, as MacDonald demonstrated, was really prominent with the Dionysian quote gospel, with the Dionysian mystery.
Your entire video is about that too. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I've done a video on that.
Right. That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Your video.
That was the purpose of John, to elevate for those Ephesians in his audience, was to elevate Jesus's gospel as being more humane, more successful.
So to put this simple, so everybody who's watching, what Kerry is suggesting is, and it's kind of a deeper thing, and it takes a little bit of an argument here, but the fact that it's using Euripides might target the audience that the author of that gospel is actually, like, you might even find the location or at least the region in which they're writing based on the kind of mimetic, argumentations being made. If you're arguing against, this Dionysian connection that we find in Euripides the Bacchae, where is this predominant cult of Dionysus at? And if your audience are potentially Gentiles that are, or whoever, are worshiping the Dionysus, you might want to try and target and make a better gospel of that particular thing. Now, here's my question. I'd like to ask you, because we're getting off into fun, interesting out here stuff. This is what we do.
Fun.
It really is. It really is. But you said in your writing of your book, can you give us some teasers of parallels that you found with Mithraism and these other cults? Like
Sure.
I want to bring up the image again for everybody who might be tuning in new, and they're just great. There is a lot of symbolism
Yeah,
There's-
this is so cool.
Like,
This
there's
is
so much. I'm just going to go through all of them here just to give people an idea. Inside of these caves, if you will, where they're in the underworld, which is the implication. They're in the underworld, which, by the way, you know, when Osiris is dying or when people died, they went through the underworld. It wasn't that it's hell. It's a
the Egyptians called that the duat.
Right.
That
So
was the journey of the sun under the earth when it set in the west.
And this celestial connection, like, what parallels do you see in this Mithraic cult between that and maybe other, what we see in astrology and Judaism and Egyptian, et cetera, et cetera? Are there any connections that you have found specifically?
Oh my goodness. Dude, how many days do you want me to talk? What I meant to say was, yes, I have found a couple.
Oh, wow. I didn't know we had some super chats. So,
let's go to the super chats.
Okay.
I love those.
I want to get to the connections here, but I gotta let the people who keep the lights on,
Absolutely,
get there.
Absolutely. We're here for them. Talk to us, people.
Mr. keeps on ticking. What do we know of the different grades of initiation? Also, what does the professor know about the lion head statue found in the Sidon Mithraeum? Wow.
One of my favorite symbols. That lion-headed dude is rocking, man. Yeah.
Is that the guy right here? Let me pull it up, real
That
quick.
is the
guy right on the right here. Is that a lion head that he's right behind the nude dude?
Now that is an initiate in one of the higher grades. One of the grades in the initiation, I think it was either the 4th or the 5th or the 3rd. I can't remember exactly which.
Right.
Is the lion. You begin with the raven, and then you go through the different initiations, and they tie him in with the animal. The one he's talking about.
You got a picture.
Oh, and I'm going to do something amateur. I apologize. I feel terrible about this, but I will get over it.
I hope you will. Can you live with yourself?
That's the one I believe is talking about.
Got it.
And this is a syncretization with many. Notice he's on the globe, and he's got that snake, the mother goddess symbol par excellence. I'm not kidding you. The snake in the Garden of Eden, the snake in the Garden of the Hesperides. That was the agent of wisdom. That was not a bad guy. That snake is circling his body 7 times, 7 steps to the initiation, 7 planets anciently.
7
Again,
Earths,
that's
7
the mother.
Heavens.
The week is 7 days. That's one of the big numerological symbolism, mystic things. But this is the lion-headed, the important part of this. Now, this is out of a, notice that globe has an X on it, right? This is the...
I'll try and find that specific one.
This is not the globe of the earth that this figure is standing on. It is a globe of the heavens. And that X is one of the solstice markers, either the fall or the I meant equinox. I said solstice. I meant equinox, either the spring or the fall. Now, in Macrobius, commentary on the dream of Scipio, the way they were including themselves into the universal aspect of things is the souls, when you die, go through one of those crossings. There's 2 of them, one in the spring. That's an excellent picture right there. And notice how the head, notice it circles up and around him, and then his head is laid right on top of that lion head. And then he's holding the torch. And in his other hand, it's broke off. He usually has a spear, and he's usually nude. And the wings, now that one showed 2 wings. There's other ones that show him as 4 wings. So the idea is they were trying to get us into the cosmos. And now, of course, we moderns, we say, well, souls, the soul doesn't exist and all that. If we're going to study the ancients, we need to take their idea seriously and see what they're, because if you don't, then you don't understand their symbolism.
Even if you don't agree at the end of the
David
day.
Ulansey, in his outstanding Origin of Mithraic Mysteries, He is one of the new interpretations that describe this Mithras liturgy as an astronomical initiation. It does have to do with astronomy. See that big bar this guy is holding? There's that big bar. What this represents, this is the tilt of the Earth's axis. And Mithras is the deity of the precession of the equinoxes, according to Ulansey. And he is the one, the reason he is Sol Invictus, he is actually pictured separate from the sun. There is some iconography that shows the sun is actually bowing down, not bowing down, but he's on his knees in front of Mithras. Mithras is the greater deity than Sol Invictus, and then later on they were combined, of course. A syncretism, the Roman, the Greek, the Kybele, the Phrygian, etc. This guy, Mithras, he could rotate the entire cosmos. He could change that. Well, this is a symbol. They had discovered the precession of the equinoxes. Every 2,000 years, because of the wobble of the Earth on its axis, it points to a different part of the zodiac, and it's in each zodiac for 2,000 years. Now, I know you recently interviewed, well, it was last March, I believe, Dr. Giorgiani, and he was describing this. He had an excellent description of this. He got it out of Ulansey. Now, there are people, of course, who disagree with Ulansey. I don't, and I'll explain it why in a minute. Boy, we're getting into some heavy stuff. How much time have we been going?
Hour and 5 minutes.
No! Don't you mean 5 minutes?
I know, right?
This is so much fun. Oh, crap. This is fun. Okay, so what was I lying about? The procession. The procession.
They call those ages, by the way, for anybody who's...
Yeah. The zodiac ages. Now, here's the catch. This is what is so stinking cool. This was one of the things that turned me totally on to Joseph Campbell in his mythology. I believe it's in his Occidental mythology. Now, here's the thing. We're in each age for 2,000 years.
Or now, a little more, some say, but either way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're rounding. Back in the ancient Egyptian times, when the pharaohs were lords and rulers, and they say the pyramids were built 4,000 BC, 2,000 BC, whatever. We'll go with that for now. There's arguments. Graham Hancock argues otherwise, along with some others. We'll talk. That's another video. But notice, back in that age, what was the main deity? The Apis bull, the bull. And the procession back then was in Taurus.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it shifted for 2,000 years, right? It went from Taurus to Aries the ram. Now, you have the story in the Old Testament of Abraham sacrificing Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
But what was replaced for Isaac?
A ram, yeah.
A ram. You have the Argo boat, very important myth. Jason chasing after what? The golden fleece of the ram, right?
Right.
Well, 2,000 years go by, and it goes into Pisces. And then we have Jesus, the fisher of men, and he turns his apostles into the fisher of men. That is emphasized. Now, it is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Right.
We're going to Aquarius. We'll be there in 200 years. None of us will see it, but it's constantly shifting. The symbolism of the ancient mysteries and the ancient civilizations reflect that procession. Hipparchus discovered it, the Greek astronomer. What was it, 200 BC, something like that?
I don't remember exactly.
These Mithraists, according to David Ulansey,
Are you looking at the lion or the other side of the sphere?
I was looking. God, yeah, that one. The camera's backwards, man.
And by the way, just a little fun fact is some
Sure.
argue the Sphinx. The head of the Sphinx is Leo pointing in the direction of Leo the lion in some,
Yes,
larger.
10,000 BC. That's
Right,
Bram
right,
Hancock. Yeah.
Right. Now, whether that's true or
fun
not,
stuff. That's
there's
fun
still the symbols, and we've been around for a minute now, even pre-Ice Age. So this gets even to like Göbekli Tepe, and we don't even need to go into that. But you go far enough back, they're still using animalistic imagery on caves, and a lot of people think, well, they're just drawing the local gazelle, or they're just no. There may be celestial significance in pre-Ice Age times where humans are using this astrological, if you can, calendar on when they need to plant, when they need to reap what they sow, et cetera, because that is all. The story in the heavens also helps them with the story on life here on Earth.
Fundamentally, there is research, there is scholarship. I do have their book, and I'm on their website, but don't ask me who they are. I can't remember the name right now. This is embarrassing. Oh, for shame. Oh, horror. The Greek Homeric epics are describing the sky. It's a star map in story form. Hercules and his 12 labors, zipping through the constellations, etc. Look, whether you like it or not, that's cool. Whether you agree with it,
yeah. I mean,
that's kind of cool.
It's
We
mythology. Sorry,
Yeah.
I have to say that. Like, I love stories. I don't believe that Samson killed 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass. I could see that being a story that related to people in the ancient world who wanted to defeat their enemies in the real sense, and they wanted to paint a hero, and et cetera, et cetera. But Samson's name means the sun. He had 7 locks. I mean, making the point, here is another Hercules who's going in, and he's on earth as it is in heaven motif. And I see relevance to that. So I think there's a lot more depth than what we give credit for. And the reason why is we're dealing with fundamentalists. And, I have found, I want to say this one thing, then I want to get the next super chat. I have found that the less I have engagement with fundamentalists, whether they be Muslim, whether they be Christian, Jewish, because those are the 3 major ones that I deal with.
Mormon.
The less, well, yeah, I mean, but the less engagement I take my time and attention and focus on their ridiculous claims, modern, absolute ignorance on understanding these ancient narratives, the less stress, number one. Number two, the more focus I can put into actually assessing what's going on and not sitting here scratching our heads going, did he literally die with a physical body or a spiritual body? And this is that. It's like talking about Jesus' resurrection. There is so much more to all around. When you do it, you kind of look and you get to that whole argument and you go, I'm not wasting my time. It's a waste of time trying to engage and waste my time dealing with the fundamentalism, because there's so much better content out there.
Just one quick thing, and then we will get to that super chat. I just recently read a discussion on Samson that I know you'll be interested in, where he is now this is Samson in the Hebrew tradition. You mentioned Hercules.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Outstanding. Here's why. Because his description in the Old Testament does not match the Hebrew armies, but it does match the Homeric Trojans.
Right.
Was this one of the sea peoples, the Danai, that came over and became the Philistines?
That's what I was thinking.
Testament? There really is a genuine connection there. Just kind of
that's a wonderful point, because if the ancient stories that we're talking about with Hercules already have their roots even pre-Homer, because Homer had to write, or we say Homer's not the actual author. There are a bunch of poets that have come together, brilliant poets that we call Homer as if it's some single author guy.
That's one of the higher criticism points.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things we're opening up here. But the point is, I think there's that great connection. Why do the Philistines play a significant role? Maybe there's a memory, a cultural memory of their connecting. And we're opponents, but I find that the enemies like Canaanites, right, who are their own ancestors, makes me wonder, what kind of connection did they have with the Philistine?
I love it.
because they're enemies, but it makes me wonder how much closer. That goes for Egypt as well. Makes me wonder. So there's a lot here to consider. Medalia, thank you for being patient. I'm so sorry for.
Yeah. Let's.
Please don't hate us. Automatically, no matter what you say, your sins are forgiven. How about that? The Pope has declared that. Have you seen the underground sarcophagus of Mithras and Sol under San Clemente Church in Rome? It is said that the original church was from 500 to 27 BCE.
I will check into that. I do believe Brian Mararescu in his Immortality Key describes and discusses and talks about some of that. I'm not quite sure, and I'm not arguing, I promise. Great question. It is said that the original church was from 500 to 27 BC. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. You can't be talking about Catholic Church so I'm not quite sure what church.
But we know that Rome, since Rome's brought up, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that Rome, where St. Peter is supposedly buried, right, was built over the top of a Mithraic temple, if I'm not mistaken. Is this not factual?
Right on top of it. And Mararescu was allowed with one of the cardinals to go into that. And he talks about that in his book, The Immortality Key. Oh, that's staggering what he finds. It's just, oh, come on. I thought I had it. Well, anyway.
I gotta call him again because he's been on vacation with his family. I told him I need to get him on. For those who are interested,
I'd love to do a three-way and get on with you if that's possible.
Let me take his cherry first, and then I'll let you have second, you come and join in. But I just want to make sure he comes on, he feel comfortable, he's here on MythVision.
Of course.
Yeah, I want to take his virginity on MythVision.
But the underground sarcophagus of Mithras and Sol is one of those many hundreds that is seriously significant for this reason. And this is one of the subjects I'm going to at least broach it at this point.
Right.
This demonstrates, and hang on to your britches. Some of you have already heard this and read it. Some people haven't, and it's a shock. I hadn't, and it's a shock. A shock, I tell you. Sorry, too much enthusiasm. Okay, now to get scholarly. Based upon the intellectual premise with which we are postulating the conceptualization of this particular situation, I would propose that this sarcophagus demonstrates that the sacred meal was entheogenic.
Right. There was some
meaning the wine was mixed. Now, I'm going to use a bad word here. It's mixed with hallucinogenics. Now, when we talk drugs anciently, in their communion, it is not our drugs today.
Right.
Ours kill you. Well, now theirs can, but with their mixtures, various honeys, the biblical description, the land flowing with milk and honey.
Right.
Have you ever seen Dan Merkur's book, The Mystery of Manna?
No, but I know that it's a psilocybin or something.
Manna was the mushroom.
Right.
The Amanita muscaria. Carl Ruck, huge.
I thought it was the psilocybin. I thought it was because Amanita.
It's a combination. It's a mix. So that's why the importance. Your question is so excellent because that leads us again into a new expanded set of concepts that have either been deliberately ignored or suppressed in our day because it's too cotton picking uncomfortable. But there is now a scientific approach with this that is going to be able to give it a stronger credibility. Classicists have entirely ignored the Indo-European migration theme of Soma. R. Gordon Wasson.
You and these books, man, you're awesome.
Soma. He has shown how in the Vedic tradition, Soma is the Amanita muscaria. And he shows it through the scripture of the Rig Veda. And now finally, Carl Ruck, Mushrooms, Myth, and Mithras.
Ooh.
You got to get this, Derek. I promise.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know, more money to spend. But truly, the theme is not whacking out for no purpose. This was seriously sacred because, as Derek and I have talked behind the lines a few weeks ago on the telephone, what is happening here is they have discovered we live in a three-dimensional world. Einstein comes along, gives us the fourth dimension, space, time, space, 4 dimensions, depth, width, height. We only use, I'll say 10% of our brain. I've seen it said 6. I've seen it say 10%. What would it be like if we could use 30, 40, 100% of our brain? Our brains are not sponges absorbing knowledge. It is a filter keeping the vast majority of input out. What would it be like if we could absorb it all? The drugs open up the synaptic connection.
This is not an advertisement.
No, I'm not advocating.
I'm saying that as someone who's been there and done this stuff. So.
I agree, and I understand your story. Yeah, so this it might be a little squeamish. I don't mean it.
No, it's not. I just worry about the people who don't know.
The ancients for thousands of years, and it is in Homer. It's in when Odysseus ran into Circe. The Greek text says she produced a pharmacon, a potion that turned his men into pigs, but the goddess gave him an antidote, the molly plant, right? When you read that in the Odyssey. So there is a pharmacy going on anciently. And this is talked about in... And this is one of the coolest concepts. Another great book, Magica Hiera. I try to get the scholarly materials as much as I can. And this is edited by Papon and Obrink. John Scarborough has his article, The Pharmacology of Sacred Plants, Herbs, and Roots. Now, the description in Homer is about this theme, right? But in the Mithras Liturgy, they talk about the Kentrites plant. In order to prepare them for their ascension, they prepare a concoction and take it. And that is part of their cult. That is part of their action. So I'll just broach that. I'm going to do lots of videos on this.
Wow.
Every one of these books, The Apples of Apollo by Carl Ruck, which is out of sight, Persephone's which is out of sight, The Hidden World. Now this one talks about the survival of pagan shamanic themes in European fairy tales. The mysteries were destroyed by the early Christians of their day, is what they want you to believe. What actually happened is they went underground. They hid them, just like those Gnostic scriptures that we found in 1945, right? Well, Ruck has discovered that the mysteries, to avoid being burned in the book burnings, they put them into the stories, the children's stories. They put him into the mythologies, the stories of the myths. They put him into the fairy tales. And when the authorities came along to either accuse you of witchcraft, as Brian Maurescu in his Immortality Key shows historically, that's exactly how they stamped him out, is they turned, the women are the ones who did the pharmacon. because they were the gatherers of the herbs anciently. The men were in their symposiums, like Plato and Socrates showed. They were sitting there drinking away, solving the problems of the world. The women were out there in the mountains in the Dionysian orgiastic mysteries. What they were doing was they were using their pharmacon. What it did is it opened up their minds so that instead of experiencing, let's say, 3 or 4 dimensions, they experienced 1 or 2 more. That is the idea, perhaps, of where the supernatural comes from. How else are you going to describe this stuff?
Yeah,
it's not everyday experience in our 3D brains.
Oh no, you can't compare it to anything
Well,
that you've
I
ever
mean,
done.
there's
Yeah.
the man that knows. Right?
I've done some things, and I
Oh.
can tell you, yeah, there's not an experience. I've been born again and sober minded, and laying on of hands and speaking in tongues and going crazy in church, and it pales in compare. There's not a comparison. There's no way to put it into
There
words.
can't. And that's
It's
how
not
they
possible.
describe it. That's how they describe their, all of a sudden, what happens when they're having their, let's say they're having an ascension, which is what the Mithras Liturgy is describing. He describes the ascension. So what happens when you meet that bright deity? How else are you going to describe him except compare him to the sun? Right. So, and I'm not dissing on the supernatural. I'm not dissing on the natural. As a way of trying to comprehend and come together and understand better the ancients, and now the new thrust with realizing we can scientifically test this, man. We can test what they were drinking scientifically with our technology, and it's turning out to be hallucinogenic. There's mixtures of different mushrooms, different kinds of plants and stuff that they were using. Now, what else are you going to call it except holy? You know, you and I every day, we get in the car, we drive cars. Oh, crap, I got to go to work. Okay, yeah, I got a clogged toilet. I got to plunge the toilet. Yeah. The everyday common Joe, well, I'm hungry. I got to go have lunch. In and out, day after day after day after day. And all of a sudden, an entirely different experience occurs. What else are you going to call that except deity or supernatural or whatever?
Right.
Are they wacky? Are they wrong? Or are they experiencing something they can't describe? And in our ignorance, to cover up our ignorance, we accuse them of saying, oh, well, you're making that up. How do we know?
Yeah, see, that's so I want to get these super chats here for everybody who's chatting.
Okay, yeah.
I want to be, as a skeptic, as someone who thinks that this is natural. I think hallucinations and experiencing things are natural, right? Which means someone might go, no, I think this takes you, like Joe Rogan would say, this takes you into the supernatural, and that you're actually experiencing a new dimension that's literally something that's more real.
Rogan too,
oh,
huh?
yeah.
I would get along.
Yeah, but I would disagree at the end of the day, right? But I don't discredit the experiences as real experiences, and you know, it's really silly, I think, to draw that line and act like they're not actually experiencing these things that they're describing, while simultaneously never knowing from your own experience. I've had these experiences. I know. I still posit a natural at the end of the day, and that's still, even though I say that, people think that means you're like, oh, you're just antagonistic. No, I see purpose, and these experiences playing roles in the changing of people's psyche, causing an impact in the influence of their life. I mean, look, you see people like Jordan Peterson. They use the psychedelics as an argument for supernatural. And they say, unless you have a conscious, there's an actual like shamanistic, or someone is helping you go through this particular psychedelic that causes people to stop smoking, depression, no more fear of death, et cetera, et cetera. I'm up on the science on these things, and I do think that they play a role. He puts more on the supernatural. And for me, I'm like, no, I think these pharmaca, these actual ingesting these things will play significant roles. and they play an impact when people take you through them safely to help you go through that process.
You
I
need
don't,
the shaman. Yeah, you do need
or
the
at least someone, if you want to call it a shaman, you can call it that.
Well,
whatever
the ancients had the shamanic
Right.
overseer, and the Lakota Sioux and the South American Indian.
It's just good to have someone there who knows what they're talking about. Do this. My point is, you could say it's Zeus, you could say it's Krishna, you could say it's Jesus, you could say it's whatever, or you could say, or you could say, I'm going into an experience. I don't believe there's any gods, and I'm going into an experience that's going to transform me, and I'm going to look into myself on this. And you can say I'm divine, whatever you want to do at the end of the day.
Excellent.
It doesn't matter.
Excellent, because Murarescu in his Immortality Key actually has an atheist who volunteered in one of the colleges back east. They have a 10 or 12 student volunteer where they put them on the mushrooms and give them their visionary experience. And she remained an atheist, but she said,
well, did you the
I
intro to that book?
Love for everything. I felt one with the universe. That was her description. And they said, well, what kind of a God do you call it? And she said, it wasn't a God. It was love. It was she's still
a heightened experience.
Yes, and she said, I am friends.
Well, Graham Hancock in the very opening of that book, and Brian Murarescu, he said, I'm an atheist. Okay.
Yes.
But I go down once or twice a year.
And his book's supernatural too.
Right. And it really changed his thinking, and it keeps him grounded. Because, we get caught up, like you said, and I got to shut up after this. I swear I got to go to the super chats. Please do not let me keep going. No. We get caught up on the daily regular, right? The daily regular that, like, it's sometimes we need something. And this is why hitting down like problems in your life can help you actually snap out of some of the grooves we get in. And going through that experience myself, I was looking at the way I was as a father, the way I was as a husband. And this is years ago. I mean, a decade or more. I saw things, what I would call naked. And I mean it. Like I saw, if you want to use the term sin, as though like there's a guilt there, let's just use the term for the sake of it so people can relate. All right. If you felt guilty about certain things that you could do better.
Yeah, but you relate with the wrong religious interpretation. It wasn't.
So there's baggage. I'm not trying to bring baggage.
All right.
All right. I'm just making a point. Right. I realized how much better I could be and that I was. And it made me actually.
And how it's made you now.
Right.
Exactly.
So I'm just saying that I can imagine in the ancient world how powerful this was.
Okay, get to that super chat, friend.
Yep. So, first, giving the thumbs up, shout out. I didn't really give a shout out yet. Scania, thank you for the super chat. Hope I'm saying your name properly. Appreciate it. Ahmed said, great topic, great guest. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. M. Doug says, did I miss why the bull seems to get such a hard time from these heroes and deities?
Yes, because here's the key. This is why I so love Joseph Campbell's approach to this. So here we go. And it won't take me but 1 minute. The key is do not concretize the metaphor that the bull is. It's not a real killing of a real bull. It's the symbolism of moving the procession out of the constellation Taurus into the next constellation. True, they did have animal sacrifices. I entirely agree. But the picture itself is not necessarily depicting a historic occurrence. Okay, that would be the way I would approach that. So, and I mean, yeah, they did, but you have to eat. We eat hamburger all the time. We kill the bull every time we eat meat, right? I love my ribeye steak and all. So every meal is a sacrament. And the theme here, especially in the Mithraic mysteries, and the liturgy hints at this. This is one of the reasons why I want to write my book, is because in the communion, in the sacrament, in Jesus's Last Supper, the idea in the Dionysian meal, The idea is you eat and drink the god to become the god. And they did that with animals also. So this is a god, quote, a god. Don't literalize it here with me. Don't go that route. But this is a power beyond our own, that in order to unify with and acquire, you consume. You eat the god to become the god. And that is why the sacred meal was so vastly important in all of the ancient mysteries. Isn't that wild? I mean, they had that back in the Egyptian times with the pharaoh. So that is a great question, but don't concretize the metaphor.
Thank you so much. Medalia, thank you for the super chat. The church is built over a Mithraic church dating 500 to 27 BC. Cover up. And Tellus Mater Terra Mater, Mother Earth, is sculpted with poppy plant behind her. Ooh.
I can't disagree with that, Medalia. Yeah. And Murarescu does talk about, and so does Carl Ruck, actually. I can't remember which book right now, but yeah, there is a cover up. That, how else can you put it? There has been a mean historical suppression of a lot of the ancient mysteries, or else a reversion and a switching. The reason why we see so many different possible contradictory meanings between the mysteries is through the cultural inflections. The Greeks will have a different symbolism than the Romans, than the Jews, than the Vedic peoples, but the metaphor in all of those mysteries are all pointing to the same thing, and it is unifying with the deity. Now, that's how they described it. And of course, how do you read about Zeus? He's up there, the old man, he's up there, and I'm going to throw my lightning bolt at you. Calm down, you stupid humans. I am God. I have my beard. That's the metaphor.
Right.
What we do in the West is we literalize stuff too much. We think, oh, yeah, God's a real man up in heaven. No, don't concretize that metaphor. But he does mean something.
I kind of wonder if this takes a diachronic approach, that at some point, there was for example, I'll give you one analogy, and I want to pop up a visual here that I think has a poppy seed behind it. I was looking on Google just now. But Dr. Price was saying in Africa, there was some, I can't remember what you would call the scientists that are messing with the chimpanzees and observing and whatnot, but a thunderstorm came and there was a thunderclap with a cloud and everything. And as soon as it hit, I mean, it struck so loud that it freaked the chimpanzees, and one of them looked up and went like this at the cloud. So it's probably thinking, you're coming after me, you're trying to get me. It's imagining agency behind the cloud, even if the cloud doesn't really have agency. It's just a law of nature that is going on. And it makes me wonder if at some point in the distant past, they really believed that there was a God behind the clouds or in the clouds, and that it became more, I wonder if it becomes more symbolic when they realize really there isn't a God behind the cloud. I don't know, because I wonder if we're being anachronistic here and supposing that it was always understood as just metaphorical and not actually literally believing that there's something there that actually is doing.
Well, there is a power that is beyond us in that lightning bolt.
Well, yeah,
Don't get struck by lightning.
But they had polytheism in mind, is what I'm saying. So they had multiple agents that were doing
They
things.
very well could have. Yeah. Oh, certainly. Well, yes, of course. We know some cultures did have that. Yeah, fundamentally. Right. So.
Now, is this? I don't know if that looks like a poppy plant
or
to the right of the image in the middle, the lady in the middle with the two children,
or else a cluster of grapes.
Yeah, I'm looking. That looks. I don't know. Look close at that.
Oh, I don't know. That looks like a flower though. There in the middle, doesn't it?
It does at least looks like a flower, and I'm thinking poppy. I looked it up, and
Could be.
that's
Could
just
be,
an image.
yeah.
I thought maybe there's something.
Maybe
there.
there's great. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
here.
there's grapes in her. Maybe there's grapes in her lapras. Yeah, that's interesting.
Hard to know, but I thought that might be something. Thank you, Medalia. I got another one here.
Okay.
Lauren says King Mithridates. I think that's the sixth.
Yeah, Mithridates is known as the poison king. That is correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Now in the Roman, in the ancient Roman banquets, and you can read about this in Suetonius and Pliny and all of those guys. They are talking. Well, Nero, Karl Ruck describes this. I think it's in the app.
I need to email him before.
You do.
Before he leaves us and ascends on high.
He's getting old, so you gotta hurry.
I know.
I hope he lasts another 30 years. That'd be great, and keeps writing. But the what was I?
Sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. Hey, we're all friends here, man. This is great. This is like a party.
It is.
Ruck describes. Nero is described as having a magical meal. And they're always having banquets. Suetonius talks. Hang on. I know you think I'm a nut job, but hold on.
You didn't have to tell everybody. I mean,
Oh, yeah, they all think that. It's all good. They're right more than wrong. Suetonius talks about Claudius poisoned by mushrooms, which was his famous favorite dish. Yeah. So this poisoning, now Ruck, in every book he's written, and Marescu, if you do take too much, you can overdose. It will kill you. It can make you very, very sick. This is why the ancient pharmacons, the Eleusinian mysteries, were entheogenic, but they had centuries to test and add a little more of this, take a little more of that out, and so on and so forth, so that it was perfectly safe. That would give you a much more magnificent experience, right?
Yeah.
Now, you want to hear the wild thing? In the Hebrew Kabbalah tradition, my very favorite Kabbalist, Leonore Leet, if you guys like the Kabbalah, you have got to get Leonore Leet, The Secret Doctrine of the Kabbalah. This lady is so utterly spectacular. In the Mithras Liturgy, one of the keys is to see the vision of the god Mithras, and it says that specifically. First, though, you will see the 7 female deities, the fates, and then you're supposed to roar and you're supposed to pronounce a certain magical word or whatever, and then you see the 7 deities of the pole, and then you praise them in a certain way, you say a certain word, you give them an offering, and they let you through a door. And when you get through that door, then you see the shining deity. In the Hebrew tradition of 3rd Enoch, the Hebrew book of Enoch, this one's by Odeberg. It's a huge book. You see all those tabs? Every one of those tabs are something I'm going to put in my book.
Wow.
And I have 100 books just like that with tabs in it. Anyway, so my book's going to take at least a week to write. Here's the idea. In the ascension in the 3rd Hebrew Enoch ascends. He is one of the only ones in the pseudepigrapha. This was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls now, and it was huge in some areas of early Christianity and late Judaism, although the Jews later rejected Enoch. She says that Enoch, and Odeberg talks about that in his book too. The way she describes it is, man, in his ascension now, in this book of Enoch, he is his potential final state of spiritual transfiguration, which of course represents the glory of God. The idea here, the final purpose of creation, and this is the theme in the Mithras Liturgy now, the glory thus represented the supernal form of the divine Son. Now here's the kick. the deity that the ascended guy meets is his own higher self. Now that's heavy. That is astonishing, right?
Yeah, because
So-
you know, there's something in the Gospel of Thomas. This is something Elaine Pagels told me.
Right.
Where Jesus is saying, there's some things there's some secrets, if you will, that he doesn't want to tell him. And he takes Thomas aside to fill him in. And of course, they don't say what it is. But
Right.
later on, it's this idea that wherever you look, Elaine Pagels says, wherever you look under a rock, if you look behind here, if you look there, I'm there. But this is the thing that goes even beyond that, right? Everyone knows that reads this. Elaine Pagels said she thinks she has figured out what's really going on, is that the I'm there is really you. And it's this wild, like it,
Thomas Didymus
the twin,
was Jesus's twin.
Right. And this is the interesting thing. It's like, it's the reflection of who you are the whole time. And that is going to piss off the Orthodox Church. But that's the thing. That's why they were like, no, this was
see you then.
Very esoteric. Right.
This is very esoteric stuff. Now, see, you have to have this kind of experience in order to really appreciate it. And once you have it, how can you talk about it? You can't. But you can say, but hey, if you want, I can prepare you so that you can find out. Right. And that's what all of the mystics throughout the millennia have all been saying. Right?
I'm going to keep moving on here.
Yes. Thank you for the super chat, man.
Yeah. We have to pinpoint the relationship between the extinct aurochs, domestic cattle, and these ancient cultures to figure out the role of the bull.
Oh, that's bull. Get it?
No, the relationship between extinct
that's probably that's probably right. Weren't the ancient aurochs the ones with the horns that were like 12, 15, 20 feet long? They were humongous. Big bull.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting to look at that way. I just wanted to make sure I at least covered that here. Sure. Eugene Sendrick.
Holy cow, Eugene.
Oh, wow. I didn't even notice.
Rock.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the love and the support.
Oh, that's awesome, Eugene. Thank you. That was beautiful.
And Eugene said, I have gleaned at this much value from MythVision and guest over the past year. Thank you so much.
Me too, Eugene. Me too. I love his guests.
Wow.
Except for this one. He's kind of adorable.
I don't blame you on not loving me that much. I appreciate my guests too.
No, I don't love meat.
No, I love you. No, look, can I briefly, while we have Eugene up, I have to tell everybody why I fell in love with you. I want them to know. And some people might go, he's too much. I can't deal with the excitement. You know what? Get over it. Move on. And I'll tell you why. I have to appreciate you. I found a video. Randomly, someone posted this on Facebook, and they found you. And I saw this video with all these books. I mean, the caption had, like, books took up half the screen, and it was about the historical Jesus. So I click it. I'm like, all right, here's another one. Let's just see what he has to say. And typical, just you're curious, but I'm not like, I have no expectations, but probably a boring guy who's going to be explaining how he thinks, this about Jesus or that. And I watched, I couldn't turn it off. It was 50 something minutes long. And you told my thinking. As soon as you said this book and you were like, he's got a point. And then the opposite scholar who takes the opposite end and he's got a point. And I'm like, oh my God, he's saying what I've been thinking and how I am and how I feel about this and where I'm wrestled. I listened to a historicist. I'm fully convinced. And then I listened to a mythicist. He's got some points. And I'm like, where I am now, I lean on the historicist side, but I still entertain the whole thing. And I still have a huge question. But I watched you and I had to get a hold of you. So then I contacted this email thinking it was you. And the guy responds and he's like, let's talk. And we were going to plan on doing a show. And then I messaged him. I'm like, man, you're awesome, the backyard professor. And he's like, oh, you're looking for my friend, Kelly. And I'm like, okay. So then he hooks me up with
But
your
the
number.
guy you were emailing, Bill Reel,
Mhm.
he would also make a great guest. Him
I
and
agree.
Radio Free Mormon, both.
I
those
agree.
guys.
I agree. But I was looking for you, and I called you that
thank you.
day. And next
I'm
thing you
very
know,
grateful that you found me, because you are just over the top, a breath of fresh air, and spectacular.
I felt like I knew you my whole life when we talked on the phone.
We
You know what I mean?
have somehow. I can't figure that out, but yeah. This
Maybe
is wrong.
we're twins. No, I'm just kidding.
You be the heavenly one, okay?
Oh, I don't know, man. The things I've done in this world.
That's why you're the heavenly one. It is the experiences that exalt and elevate you, not the cloister of doing nothing.
Right.
So you're there, man.
I've had some experiences.
Yeah, baby.
Eugene, thank you once again. Love you, and I
Thank you,
appreciate
Eugene.
that. I really do appreciate that. That means a lot. If you need anything, email me for real. Seriously. And Sploinky,
Oh,
Donkey Hole.
Splunky Doink. Yeah, I know him from my
You know?
videos. Yeah. Hello,
Okay.
Splunky Doink. Thank you. That's very
Yo,
nice.
BYP.
Yeah.
What
Well,
is BYP?
I was telling people on my video and on my first live broadcast just last night to come on over, because I was going to be on MythVision, and there was a couple of people who said, "You know MythVision?" I said, "Yeah, we're like best buds, man."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they said they'd come over. Splunky Doink's one of them. Good job. Good to see you
Awesome.
here again too.
Yeah, what does BYP mean?
Backyard Professor.
Ah.
Yeah, they call me Bip. It's much
Bip.
easier to type BYP.
Yo,
So,
Bip. All right.
Bip.
I'll try to keep that in mind. You know what I mean? As we keep going. Thank you for the super chat. Really.
That's fun. Thank you.
Appreciate the support, of course. And so caught up on super chats. Love everybody in the chat. This has been amazing. How do people go and support you? What can we do to keep that fire alive and get to know more of what you do, listen to more of your stuff? So someone might have been addicted. Literally, this was their first hit of methamphetamine, and they literally are like, I am hooked. How do I go back to get more of this this drug, right? It won't kill you, though, I don't think, if you keep watching him. But how do we get more?
You might laugh to death about how silly I am sometimes. Hopefully not, though. I want you to keep watching. Well, I have the backyardprofessor.org is where, if you would be so kind, you can go and drop a donation. It can be a one. Yeah, that's it. See that ugly guy there? That's actually me. I need to upgrade that picture. That makes me look too stern. That's not me at all. But there's
you're too fun. You should be like this.
You can do it one time. Yeah, I should, huh? You can do it one time or weekly or monthly or whatever. And I do appreciate all the support. My videos are at Mormon Discussions Inc.
The website? Or the YouTube, right?
Yes, it's a YouTube website.
Let me show them how to get there real quick, just so they know, because I already got there and they probably
the backyardprofessor.org is my podcast site.
Right here.
And what we're doing, this is under the umbrella of Mormon Discussions Inc. What we do is we extract the sound from the video so that people can listen to it if on the way to work, back and forth and so on. But the videos themselves are under Mormon Discussion Inc. YouTube.
So this is the YouTube. I just want to show them.
Yeah, see,
this
there
is the YouTube,
I am.
and then you go to the playlist. Go right here. This is the most recent yesterday.
Playlist.
Go to playlist, then go over here to Backyard Professor on Mormonism.
Right.
And you're going to get him. This is just an ad, but there's a playlist literally of 32 videos right here already.
Yes, and those are all my videos.
One of these is the Historical Jesus one, I think. Right here. This is the one. This is the one.
That's the one. That's it.
And I said, "Holy!"
And you guys thought he was exaggerating about the stack of books, didn't you?
No, and this isn't even all of them. You start bringing ones off screen into the video, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this guy! Look, he's just going through them." I mean, it never ends. He talks about about the Mormon one on the Historical Jesus, and you're like, "This is the worst one out of everyone that's."
Well, I didn't mean to backhand them, but they deserved it. They know better.
Yeah, that was funny. But anyway, I want everyone to know how to go there to check out my boy.
Well, thank you. And I would like to add, don't neglect Bill Reel and Radio Free Mormons materials on there also. They have a program called Mormonism Live that we all show up at, and they discuss various different issues, social ideas, problems, and stuff in Mormonism.
Mm-hmm.
And they are exquisitely knowledgeable and excellent also. So
Okay.
I think, and there might be some parts of this website that don't suit your fancy. Don't sweat it. Don't worry about that. Just find what you like and what you don't like. But Derek and I are also planning, we're intending eventually to do more on Mormonism, because I used to be an apologist and I have an absolute boatload of information that I spent 40 years learning. I was one of the original founders of the largest apologetic internet associations called FAIR. I was one of the original 3 founders, and then I've kind of had a falling out, and they apostatized from truth and I apostatized from the church. And so I went after truth and they stayed in the church. So, but yeah, we've got a lot of information that I can share that I'm going to be excited to do. So I'm also going to begin a Backyard Professor live podcast. And I do believe eventually, sometime this year, I have to upgrade my electronics, and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Derek and I are planning on putting together some kind of a program with both of us discussing various issues such as the importance of sand and why water is wet and how come I'm kidding. Come on, smile. Now we're going to explore a lot of fun mythology, religion, science, laws. We are going to rock and roll.
Wise up this way. And seriously. Mr. Keeps on Ticket says, I wish the professor's colleague Dan Peterson was as animated as him. Ask him about the Jupiter talisman, and the salamanders when you can.
I happen to be going to produce a boatload of information on those subjects. And I agree with you. Dan Peterson needs to kind of pick up the enthusiasm, but you got to understand, and I know he hates this when I say this, he was a paid apologist. And so when I said earlier, I have the advantage as well as disadvantage of not being associated with the university. My advantage is I can truly be the backyard professor. I can be me. Dan Peterson can't. He has an image he has to project. And that's part of the stifling aspect of organized religion. And it does not have to be that way, but it is. So it is what it is.
That's why we go where we go.
But yes, this Jupiter talisman, that's involved with Joseph Smith's treasure digging. Ooh. And his involvement with magic. Ooh, and his involvement with producing the Mormon mysteries called the Mormon Endowment. Ooh, and I am going to compare that with some of the Mithraic mysteries, the Dionysian mysteries, etc., because those are legitimate mysteries, even though they have been syncretized from Freemason mysteries. Mm-hmm. Even that goes.
So the genetic connection is between the Masons and Joseph Smith. He's not reading. He doesn't know, or he's probably not reading the ancient literature
back in the 1840s, you didn't have a whole lot to go on either.
Right.
In Ohio or Nauvoo.
In Eden, you mean? No, I'm just kidding. That's a whole nother topic for anybody who's wondering. Yes, they thought the garden was in America, but anyway, I digress.
They did. Jackson County, Missouri. Yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
You know, people in their time.
Now, see, there's a beautiful discussion of don't concretize the metaphor or you completely lose the meaning. Right. Because there really is a real Garden of Eden. But the question is, what is it and where is it? Because it really does exist, and we can get there anytime we're ready to go. And that's another video. I'll give you that hint.
I'll be interested to hear what
you can't concretize the metaphor or you miss it.
Right. Okay, so
That's some fun crap right there.
he's
So anyway,
you could tell he's an esotericist at heart. You can tell
Oh.
my friend Bip is for sure. Yo, Bip, I think a
Hey.
great subject to broach with MythVision is the Mormon mother goddess.
Oh, dude, Derek, let's make that plan. He's right.
Really?
Ford and Gamsey, thank you for the.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a great subject. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great.
Ford and Gamsey. I think
I
it
promise.
is this
I
is this
promise.
like a play
Hey,
on Gordon Ramsay?
we'll get a pretty big audience on that too. I think. Yeah, truly.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do it. I'll plan it with Derek.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much. Coffee Zealot, don't blame you at all with the name.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, Derek, thank you for all your content. Always watch your vids later in the day. Channels like yours are slowly changing the world. Keep up the good work.
Isn't that a good feeling?
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wanted to change
I do too, as his
all
gift.
people, all ways of thinking, including
Well,
the skeptics and the atheists.
Just
and
start thinking through stuff somewhat.
yeah, I want people to start to
Let's
value
have a
things.
discussion.
Yeah.
Not a conversion. We don't want to convert you. We don't give a damn if you think like we do or believe like we do.
Right.
That's not the issue. You don't have to, and we don't have to have you think like us.
Yeah. You'll just go to hell if you don't.
Yeah, right. Damn Christian. Oh.
No. It's okay. But seriously, I want everyone to start to learn, educate themselves, like you said, and everybody to just become a human on the show. Watch the show as a human and realize we're all humans trying to figure things out, but also realize when things are outdated or there's issues with certain ideas and why we wouldn't want to be stuck in those ways. I mean, we both came out of fundamentalist backgrounds, so there's a lot of freedom and happiness, and you can explore and go wherever you want. You don't have to tote by their particular rules and how they are telling you to live.
Well, like I love to put it too, is it doesn't matter what you think of him. I don't care if you even believe whether he exists or not. Jesus got this one right when he said, "You shall learn the truth, and the truth shall make you free."
I mean, I would say from my experience, that is definitely a statement
I'm
of truth.
throwing down the gauntlet.
Now, I don't know if that's what he actually meant in that particular context, but at the end of the day, if I'm taking truth as whatever's factually right or what is actually evidential, that's the path I'm taking. That's what's been setting me free, and from my experience.
Well, and here's the other point too: the mysteries. If we can kind of use this as a wrap up, don't we have to? Aren't we?
Yeah.
The mysteries, the whole intent of the mysteries, including this Mithras material, which is why I want to bring in all of the different parallels of all of the different mysteries. My entire book is going to be about all the mysteries and some of the really cool symbolisms and ideas and various interpretations and so on and so forth. But the whole point of the mysteries is to get us more focused onto the whole. And that's where true spirituality will be at, because none of us are infinite or unlimited. We are a part, and that's all we see. Here comes Paul the Apostle. You got to see through a glass darkly. Well, he's right, though, because we can't see the whole. So we certainly don't understand the whole. Why do you think we put up that fantastic new space telescope? Is that not cooler than hell? I am so excited to see what images that thing's. That is so cool. But the reason we keep striving is because we don't know.
We don't know. And not
but
knowing.
The mysteries want us to be encouraged to seek.
That's exactly it.
That's a pretty good ending right there, Derek.
I love it. No, seriously, I love it. And you're right. Let's keep going. And Lauren says, where can we find more about Jesus and the twin?
Oh, my goodness. Elaine Pagels.
Yeah.
She has her Gnostic Gospels. That's fun stuff.
Let me do a plug because Lauren, this right here, let me take everyone quickly. This is my Patreon. Okay. All right. I'm scrolling down. Let me just tease everybody here. Load more. Give me a second. This is why I do this, but I try not to be selfish and be like, oh, come support me. It's only $3 a month. If you support, you have access to everything here. If you want to help more out of the kindness of your heart, you can. Come on, load, please. All right. If you go down and you load more here, you do it like 5, 6 more times, you're going to find 20, 30, 40 videos. I can't remember how many with Professor Pagels.
Yeah.
Elaine Pagels. I went and sat in her living room for 2 days in a row. It's not loading, probably because I got so much running right now and we're live and everything. But you go down, you're going to find it. I wonder if there's a way to actually pull it up here. It'd be worth me showing, to be honest with you, for everybody to actually get an idea of what I'm talking about.
Well, there are several discussions of Jesus and his twin in Bentley Layton's Gnostic Gospels also. And there are various scholarly articles. You might be able to do it on Google. Just Google Jesus and the twin, or else Jesus and Judas Thomas, or Thomas Judimus, or Didymus Thomas. That's what I meant. Yeah. There's stuff out there. It's quite a subject, actually.
Let me show this here.
Cool.
Sorry. Let me show this here. So it's hard to see, but right here I've got why did you write a book about the book of Revelation, the martyrdom of Jesus and early Christians? When was Jesus' physical body resurrection the standard teaching? With what body was Jesus raised? These are all Professor Elaine Pagels. Were the Gospels really written by followers who knew Jesus? How did we get the Nag Hammadi library? Are they authentic? Going back here.
I gotta start watching those.
These are all in my Patreon.
That's a gold
like
mine.
Only a couple are public. What are the origins of Gnosticism? Jesus said, who do men say that I am? And then there's Joel Baden, there's John J. Collins, then back to the origin of Satan. Why religion?
Yeah.
What is the teaching of Gnosis?
One of your people in the chat, CM, says the name Thomas means twin. That's correct.
Right.
And Pagels would know that, and she does talk about that. Yeah, the actual name. Yeah.
I just want everybody to see, like, all of these that you see my pointer highlighting.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
From here all the way up to here, and then back on the previous page. Oh no, a couple up here too, and then on the previous page, all of those are on my Patreon, and that's why I do the plug, because it keeps me alive. I traveled to Colorado. I went to her house in the mountains. I sat at her feet. I was her apostle for 2 days, and I listened and I asked questions.
It's my turn next.
Well, if you want, we talked about meeting up and stuff.
I do. I would love to be introduced to Elaine Pagels and talk to her. I'm holding you to that one.
Please. Yeah. Hey, I'm friends with her. She's
one of my favorite authors.
She's at Princeton right now, so maybe I can visit her. But when she's back in Colorado, maybe we can make something happen. So.
Sure. Yep.
Love you, everybody. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like the video. Share this with somebody who you think might like it.
You got a great audience, man. They're smart. They're awesome.
They really
I've
are.
enjoyed this very much. Thank you for having me on again. It's been very fun.
I'm
looking forward to more. Well, let's hope so.
If you want to join MythVision's initiatory cult, the start is by saying these 3 words. We are MythVision.
Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.